All in Sports Network. We love sports.
Coming to you from the land of brisket and barbecue, Lone Stars and Long. This
Welcome back in. Both our teams pulled out wins this week. We will break down the Rams, Eagles, and Ravens Bills game, including our Mayflower move and Lone Stars of the game. So let's go. All in Colts.
Yes, that's correct. I'm Kevin. This is my son, Liam. We're the Unstable Blues. Happy to present All In Colts as part of the Rogue Media Sports Network.
Yep. Colts Corner Bulletin time. The Colts have found their new defensive coordinator and the creative defensive mind behind the 2021 Super Bowl runner-up, no-name Bengals defense. He works in a 4-3 and routinely mixes blitzes with false pressures and schemes very team-specific to week to week. Sorry.
Yes, Lou Amarudo is the dude, and
he is.
I saw Kenny Moore with a supportive social media post. So that could impact some of those things that we talked about yesterday with the needs, and could also impact now that we probably have to go back through our vet list and maybe even it mostly will impact the vet list. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anybody who he has worked with in the past may come up as potential grab in free agency.
It's true.
So to the recap from the week, why don't you start us off with the
All right.
Rams-Eagles game?
I didn't do a narrative last week, so I'm not going to do one this week. Just kind of keep it the same way.
Right.
So we'll start with the stat sheet. Matthew Stafford went 26 for 44, 324 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a big game there. Jalen Hurts went 15 for 20, 128, but he also had 70 on the ground on 7 rushing attempts. Saquon Barkley was the man of the game, 26 carries for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. Kyren Williams had 19 carries for 106 yards, had a fumble. I don't know if he had the second one or not. I believe that was Stafford who had the second one. Puka was
the top. Was it a pass?
Yes, I'm sure. Puka was the top receiver in the game. He caught 6 passes for 97 yards. Higbee and Parkinson both had a touchdown each. Dallas Goedert was the number 1 receiver for the Eagles, 4 receptions for 56 yards. And then Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Zach Bond, Blankenship, and Burks all had 6 tackles for the Eagles. And there was 5 sacks, all split up between Carter Smith Jr., Jomo, I believe is how you say that, and Hunt. Christian on the side of the Rams. Christian Roseboom had 8 tackles. Turner had 6, and Cameron had 5. And then for the sacks, there were 7 sacks split up by Jared Verse, Gallimore, Fisk, Mikolo, Spates, and Turner. So lots of sacks.
Love there.
Lots of different people getting in on the action. Team defense. The intangibles for this game. So the way I like to look at it, I like to base it off of stats, but that is not always what intangibles are. They're not always stats.
Right.
But they can be. In this case, total yards went to the Rams by 52. Passing yards, Rams won by a lot. Rushing yards was won by the Eagles by a lot. Yards per play were exactly the same. Rams had more first downs, third down efficiency, fourth down efficiency, pretty similar plays. Eagles had statistically a worse game besides rushing, which we talk about. Rushing matters. The league is somehow, if you have a good run game, you go far. So that is a big deal. Time of possession was almost identical. Eagles barely won it. There was more punts for the Rams, one more punt, so more 3-and-outs or more stopping, I guess you could say. And then the big one is turnovers. Eagles had 0 turnovers, and the Rams had 2. You have to be almost perfect in playoff games to win them, and the Rams were not. Everything else they did pretty well. The run game wasn't, the greatest, but not much you can do against Saquon, who goes for 205 and 2 touchdowns. But the Rams defense played pretty well. The front four definitely showed that they were the best unit on that defense, even though they did let up 205, but that wasn't them necessarily. If you think about it, those 2 huge runs by Saquon is the second level. That is the weaker point of this offense. There's not much else to say about intangibles, honestly. So Mayflower, move of the game. This is whenever the game was put away. Whenever Saquon had the 768-yard touchdown run, his second touchdown of the day, he told Jalen Hurts before that play, he looked over and said, "Watch this." And he scored a 68-yard touchdown in the snow. Very, very, very talented running back. I will say it time in and time out. So much praise for Saquon for what he does, which leads me to my lone star of the game. It has to be Saquon Barkley. He carried the team. Now, once again, I keep on saying they have A.J. Brown, they have Devontae Smith, they have Dallas Goedert. They don't need to only use Saquon. But if it works, why not do it?
Yep.
So, yeah, that's where I got.
Totally get it. All right. So from one snow game to the other, 2 back-to-back snow games. There was snow in three of the 4, right?
Was there? I don't think there was snow in Kansas City. It was earlier on in the day, all that stuff.
Yeah. All right. So 2 back-to-back snow games on Sunday. That's playoff football. That's old school playoff football. So I will hit you with a narrative here. Get to where I'm at. Here we go. The Ravens started off with a Rashad Bateman touchdown after a Lamar scramble on 3rd and long on the first drive. The Bills answered back with a 6-minute drive capped by a Ty Johnson 1-yard touchdown run. Taylor Rapp intercepted Lamar Jackson's very next pass, but the Bills weren't able to capitalize with points. Ravens were moving the ball well on their next possession, but after a couple broken plays, Von Miller scooped up a Jackson fumble and ran it just outside the red zone. This time, the Bills were able to finish it off with a Josh Allen touchdown run. After getting a 1st and goal, the Ravens were held to a field goal. Then the Bills executed a perfect 4-minute drill, finished off by another Allen touchdown run to bring the halftime score to 21-10 in favor of the Bills. Second half started off with a 3-and-out for the Bills and a field goal for the Ravens. After another stalled drive for the Bills, the Ravens got the run game going with Derrick Henry and scored a touchdown, but they did not convert the 2-point conversion. And that led to a 21-19 score leading to the 4th quarter.
Yep.
The Bills answered with a field goal, and with the Ravens driving, Terrell Bernard stripped Mark Andrews. That only resulted in a field goal after a stout defensive stop by the Ravens inside the 5, but that left an 8-point game, 27-19, with just over 3 minutes to play. The Ravens put together a masterful drive, resulting in a 24-yard Isaiah seemed likely touchdown, but that left the necessary 2-point conversion to tie the game with 1.5 minutes left, but the rollout pass from Jackson was dropped by Andrews just before the pylon.
You want to know something funny? So they have ran that play, that same play, or a variation of that play since 2021.
It's a great play for him.
And you know what? You know what's funny? It hasn't worked. Like
Ever?
over half the time. Over half the time, it hasn't worked.
Hmm.
It's such a good play.
Yeah.
I love it because you roll out with a super mobile quarterback, so you have
Yeah.
to have guys coming here. There's a guy
Yep.
on the flat, but there's also a guy in the back of the end zone. Both very capable tight ends to catch this pass. And then you got a guy coming a little bit further, but on the backside still.
Yeah.
You have
And if nothing else is open, then he can run it in.
Yeah, because he's fast enough to beat the guys to the outside.
Yeah.
But it hasn't worked.
Interesting. Well, that leads to the stat sheet time. Josh Allen went 16 for 22 for 127, 2 rushing touchdowns, though. No interceptions, no passing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson seemed more impressive, 18 for 25 for 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, but an interception and a fumble. He added another 39 yards on 6 carries, while Derrick Henry ended with 16 rushes for 84 yards. That is 5.3 per. And he had a touchdown. And Justice Hill added another 50 yards on 6 touches for 8.3. He didn't come out of the backfield though, like I called. That was mostly just rushing. James Cook ran 17 times for 67 yards, while Ty Johnson and Ray Davis rounded out the ground game for a combined 60 yards on 9 carries, and Johnson had that touchdown early on. Khalil Shakir was Allen's top target with 67 yards on 6 catches. Of course, he would be as the most senior Bills longest tenured receiver at this point. Isaiah Likely led the way for the Ravens with 73 yards and a touchdown. Rashad Bateman had 66 yards and a score, and Mark Andrews had added another 61 yards on 5 grabs.
Yes.
Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith had 9 and 8 tackles respectively. Overall, the Ravens only managed 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, and 4 QB hits, and no passes defensed.
That's what happens whenever Josh Allen's on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, DeMar Hamlin, on the other hand, led the way for the Bills defense with 8 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, a QB hit, and a forced fumble.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't I just praising DeMar Hamlin last week?
Yeah. Greg Rousseau added the other sack, and Terrell Bernard forced the other fumble, and Taylor Rapp had an intercepted pass before he had to leave the game just before halftime with an injury. The intangibles, the turnover ratio was 3-0, which now puts
plus
the
29.
Plus 27.
27?
Plus 24. Now
they were? I thought they were plus 26.
No, they were plus 24. Now they're plus 27. Yeah.
Okay.
Once again, if you look at the actual stats, the Bills only really won time of possession in addition to the turnovers. Now, those 2 stats alone can win you a game.
Yes.
They don't necessarily mean, because everything else, rush yards, total yards, passing yards, everything, third down conversions, amount of first downs. I think Bills had 1 extra play. Something like everything else went to the Ravens. So to me, this screams, what are the other intangibles? Obviously, turnovers is huge. 3-0 is huge, but relentless pressure and team defense.
I like it.
They were everywhere. Even if they let Lamar escape, it wasn't for long. Even if they let a receiver open down the field, it didn't happen the next time. And then the end of half touchdown drive. I talk about the first 4, last 4, middle 8. That was a tight score because I give the Ravens the first 4 because they scored just outside the first 4, and they did score the last touchdown of the game. So that's 13 points right there. So I think that score, because the Bills scored their touchdown before inside the 4 minutes. So I think that's a 13-10 differential. But I think the way that they held on to the ball and made sure that they squeezed every bit of clock off and scored the touchdown before half was huge. 21-10 is way different than 14-10 or even 17-10.
Yep.
What that does to the psyche of the other team, because let's be honest, the Ravens came out ready to go, ready to click, made the necessary halftime adjustments. The Bills did not win the rush yards, but they won in the first. They won it in the first half, and they made the Ravens play from behind. So I think that is, really what behind the whole game. That then leads me to covered that the Mayflower move. The Terrell Bernard forced fumble on Mark Andrews. That happened at a key moment of the game, resulted in 3 points the other direction, even though the Ravens came up with a great stop there. I mean, you came up with a good stop at the 2-yard line against Josh Allen. That's not easy to do. That really changed the complexion of the game and forced the Ravens to continue to have to play from behind and miss two-point conversions. It's 2-point conversions when you could have just gone for one and you lost by 2. It looks pretty bad. I believe also then that pretty much puts Mark Andrews as the main culprit for the loss. Fumbled the ball, dropped the ball in the 2-point conversion to tie it. Not a good look for him. It shouldn't define him. He's a good player. But when your season ends that way on that game for him, much like last season with Tyler Goodson and the Colts, it's going to be a tough one in the offseason. He might have to see a therapist on that one for a little bit. Just throwing that out there. That leaves my lone star of the game. You called it. I'm going to say DeMar Hamlin.
I like it.
Back from the dead and controlled the game after Taylor Rapp had to leave back there at that safety position. So that's what I got. You got anything else?
No.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to be it for today. We will be back tomorrow with our pick 2, where we will give our predictions of the conference championship games. Then we will finish off the week with an in-depth preview of each of those games to see how the Eagles and Bills can make it to the Super Bowl.
Yep. This is Liam.
And this is Kevin.
Reminding you to stay all in Colts.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.